Module in qualitative research segment. In this module, the focus would be around how do we analyze the data that we have gathered during our field work, during our interviews, during our focus group discussion and other observations. There are four things that we would be covering in this module. We were talking about what kind of data a researcher would get. Once you are back from the field, you would like to see that I have plenty of data. So we'll try to categorize that what are the various heads under which you have data available with you. Then we'll be talking about what kind of approaches you may like to use depending upon the research problem and depending upon the overall research approach that you have adopted in the beginning. Then we'll be talking about the process of data analysis. We'll be talking about the concept of coding and thematic analysis by using a small illustration. And then towards the end, we'll talk about how a software can facilitate a researcher in analyzing the data. Now to begin with, once you come back from the field, I remember my project when I spent about 3 months in the field. We were doing a lot of data collection by doing a lot of FGDs, by doing a lot of shadowing, by doing a lot of observation, and by collecting a lot of secondary reports. So what do? We try to categorize the entire data that we have into three different baskets, or three different buckets. The first bucket has the data which you have documented through the interviews and FGDs, which is more in a structured form, and it can be longitudinal or cross-sectional. Then it comes the observation data or the field work data. So in observation, you will take a lot of field notes that can come in the form of amic or etic. Amic means when you go inside the field and you become the participant observation, or you utilize the concept of participant observation. Etic is when you just go around the field and get the data or get the observation. Then as a researcher, you would like to have a lot of memos and diary. Memos and diaries are nothing but the extension of field notes. Rather, it includes the reflection of the researcher. So every day you may like to write whatever observations you might have made. Then you may have a lot of scratch notes or head notes which you may like to document somewhere or the other. And the third basket where you have a lot of secondary data, which is in the form of logbook or which is in the form of glossary, or you may get some other reports and documents which you need to analyze. So you need to first of all convert this entire documented data into transcripts, because at times you are interviewing somebody and you are trying to scribble. So please convert all that into a structured transcript which can be understood, interpreted by a researcher. Now second step is the approach that one prefer to go for while doing data analysis. Now here I am mentioning two most common approaches. One is inductive approach and the second is deductive approach. In inductive approach, you are trying to explore the possibilities that you are having. For example, if you are going for a grounded theory or you are going for an analytic induction, you may be using inductive approach to analyze the data. I've already explained about grounded theory. The concept of analytical or analytic induction is rather older than grounded theory. And the concept talks about developing the cause or the explanation for a particular phenomena that you are trying to study. Whereas a lot of people try to emphasize upon deductive approach, and again there is no best approach that you can fit in. I've seen many times people start with inductive approach in grounded theory, but they end with deductive approach. Deductive approach has two major forms of analysis, that is content analysis and thematic analysis. I've seen a lot of researcher, a lot of books. The difference is not much. There is some overlapping between both these approaches. But to me, content analysis is when you are analyzing the data on the basis of the numbers, or you are trying to quantify the qualitative data. What I have written here is that they both can be used interchangeably many times, but there is some bit of difference in two of the approaches. Content analysis, like I've said, it is more shallow. It talks about the surface, or it does not go or give you a deeper insight of the phenomena or the interpretation. Rather, it emphasizes more upon the frequency of occurrence of specific word or specific category. So here you try to, for example, you are taking data from 100 people or 50 people. So you may like to quantify that how many people have said this, how many people have said that, and the result would be more of quantification of qualitative data. Whereas the thematic analysis provides a much deeper meaning to the researcher's curiosity. Thematic analysis is a method which is identifying, analyzing, and reporting the patterns. So in thematic analysis, you go deep down, you classify data, you group that, you integrate that, and you try to come up with a theme which is something novel, which is something new for the researcher community or which can solve bigger problems. So the focus here is to minimize the data or reduce the data, but to bring out certain pattern. So if you compare thematic analysis with exploratory factor analysis, so it's like the same. In quantitative research, we use a term called as EFA, where the objective is to reduce the data and to find common factors where there is a high level of correlation. In thematic analysis, we do the same process, but we do it more manually. Now, how do we do? So there are these three words which are very commonly used by the researcher. So even if you are going for content analysis or thematic analysis, you would describe your data in much depth by converting the interviews into transcripts, and then you try to analyze, and then you try to interpret. So interpretation is the last thing, but again I have been telling you that interpretation requires a lot of subjectivity but not biases. Many times I've seen a lot of researchers, they do this entire analysis during data collection only. So same day, if you have interviewed 5 people, so you may like to go home and try to describe it in a better way. You analyze it there only, and then you try to find out meaning. By interpreting, you may have to link the narratives that you might receive with the theory or with the specific phenomena or with some other researcher that are working in group. Now, how do we practically do this? Is in 3 steps again. So practically the process of data analysis is like you do the data management, or you create codes for the entire set of qualitative data that you may get. And then the focus is into data reduction and then integration. Data reduction is converting these codes into categories. So there may be 20 codes that you may come up with, and then you try to classify them into maybe 6-7 categories. And then after that, you may say that there is a third level coding or there is a third layer to it, where you try to integrate certain categories in order to bring out the desired theme or desired theory or desired deviance that you are trying to prove. Now, the most common term that a qualitative researcher is involved in is process of coding. Now, coding looks easy because the definition says that codes are the tags or labels which are assigned to any descriptive information that you have compiled during the research. So you are trying to flag or you are trying to tag similar transcripts or similar descriptive information into similar group or similar bucket. Now, if I do a small illustration, because we don't have much of the time, but let me give you a small example. For example, in one of my research, I went to the employees of a company and I've been asking them about which HR practice of your organization do you appreciate the most. Now, I have got a lot of responses. So one of the response that I've got from one of the employees is like that they are talking about a lot of things. Now, if you read this illustration, you have to begin your coding process from here only. Now, a lot of people will say, sir, what is the stepping or what is the starting point? Now, to help those researchers, I have a list of hint or a list of tricks that you may have. So there are 10 bullet points which are written on this slide. It says that you have to begin coding by looking at repetitions. So if you are looking at a lot of repetitions, then you try to club that entire thing into one category. Now, for example, in the answer that I have received, so if I see there is a line which says, third line which says that I have actually been benefited by the support from my supervisor in tough times. Similarly, in the bottom, you can also see that recommendation of my supervisor has helped me a lot, and I'm thankful to my boss. He is a shining star. So about your supervisor or about your boss, we have seen four different repetitions. Similarly, you should look for transitions where one person switches the argument or the statement. In this, you may again try to observe. So, what I suggest all of you to do is do a screenshot of this illustration and then do a screenshot of the techniques or the tricks that I am suggesting. Now, again, these techniques are not mine. I have actually done a lot of research in order to come up with these bullet points. A lot of people would use metaphors, a lot of people would use indigenous typology, which are specific to their region or their geography. A lot of people will bring in a lot of linguistic characteristics. So, as a researcher, it's your responsibility to find out these five kinds of patterns in the data. And on the right hand side, you can see the first thing that you should do is you should try to find out the term which you can link with the theory that you are trying to evolve or that you are trying to extend. For example, if I go back to the same example, the first line says that salary and food is not a big motivator. Rather, it is only hygiene factor. So maybe I can bring in the hygiene theory of motivation here. Or if you are going into the analysis and you find that there is a lot of missing thing or something that he is not willing to share. So if I go back to the answer that I've got, now the respondent is saying that I have a few experiences where HR has turned down all my requests. So now maybe at the time of interview, the follow-up question for you would be, please share those experiences where the request was turned down. So this is a missing data as of now. But if you get plenty of such interviews or plenty of such questions answered by employees, you may try to find out the missing data in a pattern, and then look for the keywords and link it to that context. Look for words in co-occurrence. For example, subsidized food and monthly salary is coming together. So if you have 30 interviews and everybody is trying to club these two words into a hygiene factor, then you may say that yes, there is a fact that these two terms are actually hygiene for this particular group in this given context. Then look for the similarity and differences. This point will become more important when you have plenty of data, when you have so many interviews and so many other sources of data, and then you look for the similarities and differences before you code something. So coding looks easy, but coding is very tough, because coding requires a lot of interpretation, a lot of subjectivity, but you must avoid being biased. You cannot assume anything. For example, in this interview, the person has said, my supervisor is quite helpful, quite supporting. So you can assume that in that particular group of employees or particular company, every supervisor is same. So never assume. It is not my recommendation, it is the recommendation of the experts which have pioneered in qualitative research. Again, if you go back to the qualitative analysis and you read the Straussian version of grounded theory, Strauss and Corbin has suggested three stages of coding. Strauss said that you begin with an open coding, then you go on to Excel coding, and then you go on to selective coding. And the meaning associated to them are initial coding, focused coding, and theoretical coding. So it's a step-by-step process which every researcher, and again it's an iterative process. You may go to your theoretical coding and then you may find that there is some difference in the coding of your partner. So you should not miss out on those points. So my advice, whenever you are going for a data analysis and qualitative research, number one, read the transcripts multiple times, read between the line, and look for the linguistic and indigenous typology and metaphors that may be used by the respondents. Go through each and every code. You may say that these two codes are not fitting into my theory. So they may be a different question to be answered. Or there are two different researchers. One researcher has 10 codes and the other researcher has 15, 5 new codes, or it can be all different codes. So please do not neglect any code. But once you are getting into the what do you call as integrating the codes, then there may be instances where you do not use some codes at all. So it's not mandatory that you try to club codes into categories and then themes, and every code is a mandate. Don't ignore anything, but then with consensus, you can exclude certain codes and categories and combine these codes to make categories and combine these categories to come up with a specific theme that you are trying to achieve. Once you are done with that, it's the time to write up your results. So in results, you again have these 4 steps to be followed. You need to interpret your results, whether they are making sense to the audience. If you are trying to solve industry problem, if you are trying to solve researcher problem, if you are trying to solve your own personal perception, and then you have to describe the connection between the categories because you are merging the categories and making some themes. So make sure that you are supporting it with a lot of literature. Another advice that you have to use a neutral voice whenever you are writing the research paper or your thesis. Do not get biased about anything. Neither you favor the respondents nor you are against them. And then use the previous research, previous theories, previous concept extensively so that it gives you a lot of substantiation. The last point that I want to mention here is that the role of software in qualitative research is minimal. Although we have good software, for example, NVivo or Atlas TI, which gives you a lot of support. What kind of support they can give you? They can help you in sourcing the data. They can help you in managing the data in a structured way. If you have plenty of literature review, plenty of papers, then you can manage it. Then you can sometime analyze. For example, the context or the content analysis that you intend to perform can be done by NVivo or Atlas, where you can get the frequencies, where you can even get the sentiment analysis, positive sentiment, negative sentiment, so it can pick up those words and try to give you some sentiment. Or the software at the max can do data visualization for you. It can bring some graphs and tables and some other fancy things. But eventually, as a researcher in qualitative field, you have to read everything multiple times and you have to do more than 80% of the work on your own. So you can only depend upon a software for maybe 20% or even less than that. So my advice would be that spend time in the field, get a lot of data, get a lot of information, use triangulation a lot, and then read these 4 5 books. I've been mentioning about these books time and again. The book by Denzin and Lincoln, the book by Joseph Maxwell, the book by Patton, and then Corbin and Strauss. So all these books will give you a lot of what do you call as deeper understanding about the theoretical aspects and the past and the current of qualitative research. Thank you so much for your valuable time. If you have any doubt, any query, you can reach me at my email ID, which is mentioned here. Thank you once again.